but I am going to assume that I am. So, Shalom Aleichem Ale, Dus Binir, Avi Hoffman, your host and founder and CEO of the Yiddishkeit Initiative, Why I Love Jewish, and the inaugural, international, virtual Why I Love YiddishFest 2020. Tonight is a very, very special evening for me personally, and I hope it will be the same for you. I'm sitting here in the beautiful lobby of the unfortunately empty Betsy Hotel, one of the most beautiful hotels in the world. And they are our festival sponsor, and I couldn't be prouder because if you look up the Betsy Hotel, you'll learn why it's considered one of the greatest hotels in the world, and that's not empty rhetoric, that's just reality. Look it up, you'll see. In any event, I'm here in the beautiful Betsy lobby, and tonight I am going to share with you the upcoming book of my mother, Professor Miriam Hoffman, co-founder of the Yiddishkeit Initiative. During this week of the festival, we've had so many magnificent events, but on a personal level, I got to share with you my mother's life story with her memoir, A Breed Apart, and I got to share with you her second book, Legends of the Aleph Bet, the Origins of the Alphabet. And tonight, I am sharing with you a project that she has been working on probably for decades. For those of you who don't know my mother, Professor Miriam Hoffman, that would be Columbia University Professor Miriam Hoffman. For 25 years, she taught Yiddish language and Jewish culture, humor, and the arts. She is a journalist of 35 years in the Yiddish Vorwärts, the Forward newspaper. She's an award-winning playwright who's had many, many plays produced all over the world, even winning the Israeli equivalent of the Tony Award for her translation of The Sunshine Boys into Yiddish. And so she has also written several books. And she is probably one of the top experts in the world in this particular genre, whether it's Yiddish language or Yiddish culture, Yiddish literature, the stories, the folklore. She is truly a maven, which is one of those Yiddish words that have become part of the English language. And so tonight, it is my privilege and my honor to share with you some selections from her upcoming book called Amazing Rabbinic Tales, The Shortest Tall Stories. So sit back and enjoy. And afterwards, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have in the Facebook and the YouTube. Amy London, our great stage and general manager, will be monitoring those pages as she does for every single one of these events. I couldn't have done any of this without her and Gabe Scheinert and so many other people. So think about any questions that might come up, and I'd be glad to answer them later. All right, so just so you understand that folk tales belong to the earliest folk literature, whose stories probably predate most of the Jewish sources. And once they were adapted into the Jewish setting, they were integrated into our own Jewish mythology. Now, folk tales were told as parables with a moral undercurrent to expose human frailty and strength, vanity and heroism. Now, the Jewish story generally describes wit and wisdom, evil, goodness, breaking down established norms, unmasking foolish pride, and fighting against injustice. Now, the following tales and legends talk about miracles, heroism, and cowardice, but above all, the poor folk and the wealthy. In short, anything that we would not say openly, we would disguise in a parable or a folk tale. And these tales are our most treasured legacy.
Und jetzt Hannele, die Volkssängerin. Und als die Mama hat mich geschickt, kaufen na Jaschik, hat sich in mir verliebt, oh ja, Bocher Aprikaschik, ay, das a Bocher, a scheint und a feins, und mir vor seine Bändele, oi, Ketzele, du
The one and only female pope in the Vatican. Two great Rebbes, Reb Motale Chernobyler of the Chernobyler dynasty in the city of Chernobyl in the Ukraine, and Reb Yisroel Cherezhiner, stemming from the city of Regine. Among them, they would conduct an exchange of dialogues and ideas, and each one of them had in mind to outdo the other in storytelling. And so, Reb Yisroel Cherezhiner began spinning his tale. One day, I'm sorry. One day, a very distressed chussid, a pious Jew, came rushing into the Rebbe's house with a plea. Rebbe, only your blessing can save my wife from her very difficult labor. And the Rebbe, realizing that the man was distraught, he comforted him. He says, not only will I bless you, but I will tell you a story. And the Regina began to spin his tale according to the Hasidic tradition. He said, this is a true story about a very bright young woman who lived in Rome, steeped in the Catholic lore, but could not attend the Catholic seminary due to the fact that she was a woman. So she decided to disguise herself as a young man and attended the Catholic Academy of Rome. As an excellent and valued student of religion, she made a name for herself and in time was promoted to the priesthood and then bishop until she was appointed cardinal. Of course, no one suspected that she was a woman. The secret remained with her. As time passed, the Pope died and the Vatican was about to select a new pope in Rome. A search began until they came upon this extraordinary cardinal, not suspecting that she was actually a woman. And they proclaimed her pope over all the Catholics. Now, as it is well known, the priests were often inclined to transgress, sometimes to sin on the side. And indeed, it was this new pope who hung around at night in the streets and alleys of Rome, while no one suspected that she was the pope. Not long after, the female pope discovered that she was with child, pregnant, and due to the fact that the pope wore wide garments, no one knew that she was in the family way. Now, it all came to a head during the Christian holiday of Easter, when Rome was beleaguered with an enormous crowd of pilgrims that came from all over the world to celebrate the Easter holiday. It is said that every year, at the same time, a great big podium was erected on the balcony of the Vatican, and this was the place where popes would deliver their papal sermons. And the Pope appeared before the big crowd, but in the midst of her sermon, she felt labor pains coming on, and before she knew it, she had given birth to a bouncing new baby boy. The entire Vatican was thunderstruck. The crowd outside was bewildered. How is it possible? How is it that the Pope could be a mother? But, said the Regina Rebbe, it is known that everything is possible when it comes to the nations of the world, and the same goes for the Holy Scriptures. Suddenly, the man who came to the Rebbe with a plea to ease his wife's labor pains realized that he had forgotten what he came for. He turned to the Rebbe and he whispered, Rebbe, how does this story relate to me, I wonder? Oh, it has, said the Rebbe, while you listen to the story quite intently. Your wife delivered a healthy baby boy. So go home and bring up your child steeped in our Jewish tradition. Now, Reb Motele Chernobyler was amazed. I'm baffled, he said, that you, Reb Yisroelche, found it appropriate to tell this particular story. Why are you so amazed, Reb Motele? The Regina Rebbe calmed him down. The power of a story is mightier than the pen, and one can always walk away enriched from a good story. Now, going off script for just a moment, the irony of this story is that apparently the material for this story came from the first volume of Chernobyl from the Rebbe's court that was published in 1931. This is an actual story that was told about the Chernobyl Rebbe and the Regina Rebbe. But what makes it even more amazing is that in the book, Bon Appetit, Your Holiness, which was published in 1998, written by Mariangela Rinaldi and Mariangela Vicini, in circa 855 to 858, they say that the legends in Rome point to a female pope by the name of Pope Joan. And so look it up yourselves if you don't believe my mother.
Erzähl mir, wo's Herz sagt dort, in Städtele Atin. Wie seht euch du Schilachu, wo's Fleck stehen bei mir Lachu. Erzähl mir, Baby, meine Kind. Oi, papinha mãe, o de her zaktin or her. Nu streit de let to klein, ke de gestelach di schein, ke seinen zu brochen zu brem. Nicht du schein du schilaku, so voll bist du smilaku, die wohl so schein mehr niedergehen.
The Keys. In the city of Proge, not far from Warsaw, in Poland, there lived a very wealthy man that was learned in the Torah and a very charitable Jew. His name was Feiwale Proge. His wife, Ruchel Leah, was a righteous woman. She was a mother and a great earner, being busy constantly, keeping a little grocery store, enabling her husband Feivel to sit day and night studying the holy books. His wife, Ruchel Leah, did everything lovingly, as long as her husband was able to sit and study the Torah. Then came the day when Reb Feivel passed away, and the entire town was mourning, for Feivel left behind a great reputation for being a righteous and charitable man. What he learned when he arrived in heaven was the fact that each and every Jew earns an empty lot in paradise. And every time he performs a good deed, brick by brick is laid. The more good deeds, the more beautiful the heavenly abode turns out to be, until their heavenly home is done, surrounded by vineyards and orange groves, a real paradise. But if a Jew is not pious and doesn't observe the commandments and does no good deeds, then what grows on his empty lot is stinging nettle and sharp thorns. Now the archangel Gabriel escorted Reb Feivel to paradise, displaying before him his beautiful house, a mansion with bright windows and mirrors and mahogany furniture. And when they reached the house, the door was locked. So Reb Feivel asked the angel Gabriel, "Where are the keys to my palace?" And the good angel replied, "Reb Feivel, dear, the keys remain down below, in the lower world, in the hands of your wife." "With my wife? Oh, Leah?" exclaimed Feivel. "What are they doing there? After all, I did all the learning. I studied the Torah day and night. I earned all of those good deeds. Why does she get to keep the keys to this beautiful house in heaven?" And the angel Gabriel answered, "You may have done all of the good deeds, but who worried about you and made sure that you had a protected livelihood? Who brought up the children? And who gave you the money to be able to do all those good deeds?" In short, Reb Feivel had to wait at the threshold of his fabulous home until his wife Ruchel Leah passed away and brought with her the keys to their fabulous house in heaven.
Halten Sie verfolgt zum Rebbe. Gut gesinnt in Griesem Rebbe.
The foolish folks of Khelm. Now, I'm going to try to stop sharing the screen so that you can see me full screen. And then I'll try to go back and see if I can make it work. The foolish folks of Khelm. Now, pre-war Khelm was a real Jewish town in Poland, but in our folklore setting, Khelm was known for its fools, the Chelemer Naronim, the foolish folks of Khelm. They were the object of ridicule, enjoying great popularity among the Jewish people. But we did not invent the town of fools. There were the wise men of Gotham, who were considerably older than the fools of Khelm. The Syrians regarded Homs as their Khelm of dullards. The Persians tell stories of Gilan, as the town of simpletons. The Greeks had Boeotia, a city of incredibly witless folk. The French scoffed at their countrymen of Saint-Vincent. The Scots derided the men of Cooper and Fife. The Germans poked fun at the residents of Swabia and Schildburg. And the Italians laughed at the inhabitants of Zago, who fertilized the steeple of their church to make it grow taller. And even the good-natured Dutch ascribed stupidity to the Belgians. Now, Khelm was a city in Poland, and although it still exists geographically, it is no longer a Jewish city. The Holocaust wiped Khelm off the map, and almost all of the Jews of Khelm perished in Auschwitz and the Majdanek death camps. Now, thankfully, the memory of the Khelm Jews, both the wise and the foolish ones, will remain with us forever. But before we pass judgment on the Jews of Khelm, listen to an actual meeting of the City Council of New York in the 1940s. To beautify Central Park, I recommend that we import gondolas from Venice, Italy, and let them float around our lake in Central Park. And to save money, I suggest we import only 2 gondolas from Venice, a male and a female, and when they mate, we will have plenty of gondolas to go around. P.S. Gondolas are small boats. The Khelemite Flood. The story is told about the town of Khelm, where out of the blue, the heavens opened up and what came down was a flood, reminiscent of Noah's deluge. It nearly drowned everything in sight. Now the Khelemites took off to the Rebbe's house with a plea. Rebbe, Leben, long life to you, Rebbe, do something, or we will all be wiped out and not a sign will remain of us. And the Rebbe ordered that the Khelemites say special prayers and implore the one above to stop the flood. But to no avail. It became even more severe, as if God's wrath poured out of heaven, consuming the town of Khelm. And finally, the Rebbe was struck with an idea. Someone must be carrying on an illicit affair in the shtetl. So I command you to go and find the culprits who are committing this abominable sin, and only then will God's wrath be soothed. And so the Khelemites set out to find the culprits. They searched and they ransacked every home, every corner of town, until they came across a young yeshiva boy who was having an illicit affair with a married woman in the town. In a state of rage, they began cursing and throwing rocks at the sinful couple with the idea of stoning them to death. And when the Rebbe heard what they were doing, he came running with his fists in the air, out of breath, shouting at the stone-throwing crowd, Gewalt! Yidden, stop, Jews! What are you doing? You have as much brain in your head as the church has mezuzahs. You idiot! You fools! You could, God forbid, kill the couple. Why aren't you thinking ahead? What if next year we have a drought here in Khelm and we need their services? What will we do then? The Khelemite oven On a simple old Wednesday, the Jews of Khelm decided to buy an oven for the synagogue. The problem was where to put the oven, what should the oven be made out of, and what would be the cost. One day, between the afternoon and the evening prayers, zwischen Minche und Ma'ariv, they assembled to discuss the oven. And one of them said, the oven should be made out of iron. And another one said, I insist that it be made out of tile. And they all decided that iron and tile was too expensive. When suddenly Beryl, who came from the village, jumped up and said, gentlemen, I will help you. I am blessed with plenty of cows on my farm, and I have plenty of flour and butter, more than I need, more than I can sell. So I suggest that you make your oven out of butter, and I will donate it all for free. The Khelemites were ecstatic, but one of them shouted out, you must be crazy. The butter will melt in the fire. And the other Khelemites reproached him, would you rather freeze to death? At this point, the Rebbe of Khelm stood up and he pointed his finger at the congregation. Gentlemen, don't be so hasty. We cannot make an oven out of butter. It's impossible. But why, Rebbe? Why? He said, for the simple reason that when the eve of Shabbos, Erev Shabbos arrives, and you are about to put a fleshik chult, a meat chult, into the oven, and the oven is made out of butter, which is dairy, it's milchik, then you will have treif, a non-kosher oven on your hands. Have you thought of that? And so let's leave Khelm behind and let's explore how the rabbis made sense of death. The son of the angel of death. Oops, sorry, my apologies. Now there was a time when the angel of death came down to earth and married a Jewish woman, a real witch. They lived unhappily for many years together until she bore him a son. And when the son turned 15, his father, the angel of death, got bored with his wife, the shrew, the machshefe. He preferred hell to spending more time with her, but he turned to his beloved son and he said, my son, I advise you to become a doctor, and when you visit a sick patient who will not survive, you will see me standing at the top of his head, a sign that he will not make it. And if you don't see me, then it will be a sign that the patient will survive and get better. That said, the angel of death disappeared. And the son did become a well-known doctor, famous the world over. And as time went by, the king of the land became ill, and no doctor could help him. The son of the angel of death was invited to heal the king. And the ministers were all too clear when they told him, if the king dies, you will pay with your life. And the son proceeded to examine the king. His pulse was slow and his breath was belabored. Suddenly, he spotted his father, the angel of death, at the head of the ill king's bed. He shuddered and said to him, "Father, please, get out. My life depends on it." And his father responded, "The king must die." The son realized that his father wouldn't budge unless he threatened him. "Father, if you don't get out of here right away, I will have no choice but to call mother." And as soon as his father heard his son's warning, he disappeared. The king got well, and the son got rich. A greater trick. Now, the Rebbe of Prague was once accosted by a Meshuggah who put a pistol to his head, and he said, "I want to see how the Rebbe of Prague jumps out of the 5th floor window and survives." And the Rebbe of Prague listened to the demands of the Meshuggah, and he replied, "That is not such a big deal, my son. Everyone is capable of jumping from the 5th floor. A greater trick would be to go downstairs and for me to jump up to the 5th floor and come back to you." And the Meshuggah agreed, and the Rebbe survived. The man with the glass legs. Reb Dovidel, the Chernobyl Rebbe, was a healer of the sick, a dispenser of blessings, amulets, remedies, as well as being a mystic who also knew the wisdom of ointments. All in all, he was a miracle worker. And one day he was visited by a man who insisted that he had glass legs. And so he was afraid to sit down. He was afraid of breaking the glass. He lived his entire life in an upright standing position, always standing. No matter how many times he was told that he didn't have legs made out of glass, it was to no avail. And people around him suspected that perhaps he was possessed by a dibuk, an evil spirit. And so he was taken to the Chernobyl Rebbe, the Reb Dovidel, to extract the evil spirit out of him. The Rebbe told him to sit down. And the man refused in a wailing voice, "Rebbe, I cannot sit. My legs are made out of glass, and if I will sit down, they will crack." And so the Rebbe shouted out, "I order you to sit down. I command you to sit down." The man shuddered and trembled with fear. But if the Rebbe commands, you must obey. And he sat down and instantly heard the loud crash of shattering glass. He imagined that his glass legs were breaking into millions of shards and splinters. But then the man felt his legs, and they were now made out of flesh and bone, just as the Chernobyl Rebbe had predicted. And the Reb Dovidel said, "You see, the glass broke, but your legs remained intact." And the man was overjoyed, and he went home as if walking on air. And the Rebbe's followers were baffled and asked the Rebbe how he had accomplished this this miraculous feat? And the Rebbe replied, I told my assistant in the kitchen to break several dishes at the precise moment that the man sat down. And this made the Rebbe's disciples very happy, knowing that they had such a brilliant Rebbe.
Yes, Herr Betzig, wir werden sehen mit unseren eigenen Augen, wie der Rebbe geht dann.
Eure Babbe, alle Huben sehen zu dem Tanz.
Oi, du Kinder, der Rebbe allein, ein Kind allein. Gläser, spielt jetzt, wie hat noch keinmal nicht gespielt. Hier. Oi, Weiler.
A horrible, horrible world. A young man once came to the Rebbe, pouring out his bitter heart. Rebbe, the world is so awful, terrible, and evil. What can I do? Oh, you are so right, my child, said the Rebbe. I suggest you go ahead and change the world. And so the young man ran out with the best of intentions, ready to change the world. And a week went by, a month, and then the young man came back. Oh, Rebbe, I tried, but I couldn't change the world. Instead, you should see what is going on here in our shtetl. Oh, it's horrible, disgusting, and wretched. Oh, you are right, my boy. The Rebbe agreed. I would suggest you go and change the shtetl. And so the young man left, all excited, full of hope, ready to change the shtetl. And a week passes by, and a month, and the man returns. Oh, Rebbe, I tried to change the shtetl, but it was impossible. I couldn't make it better, and now I am so miserable, disgusted, and unhappy. And the Rebbe replied, my boy, if you're so unhappy and miserable, I suggest you change yourself first. Vilna is a big city. So the city of Vilna is also known as Vilnius in Lithuania. It was known for their great Torah scholars. So this is a tale of Jewish urban life. Vilna is a big city. So one day a Jew ventured out from the shtetl to the city of Vilna. And when he came back to his little shtetl, he didn't have adequate words to describe what he saw in the big city of Vilna. And when he was asked by the shtetl Jews, so tell us, what have you seen in the city of Vilna? He replied, the Jews of Vilna are extraordinary people. And the small town folk couldn't understand what he meant by extraordinary. He says, I saw a Jew who swayed back and forth over the Torah, over the Talmud, studying day and night. And I saw a Jew that pursued business affairs day and night. And I saw a Jew running after women day and night. And I saw a Jew that ran away from women, like from a wildfire, day and night. And then I saw a Jew who used to run around day and night with the red flag shouting, revolution, revolution. And I even saw a Jew who ran around shouting, down with the revolution. And so the shtetl Jews asked him, why are you so amazed? After all, Vilna is a big city and all kinds of Jews live there. To which the traveler replied victoriously, don't you understand? I am talking about one and the same Jew. So finally, a few short stories that embrace the humor and the wisdom of the Jewish people.
Cha-cha, fish on face. Oi, der Rebbe geht. Cha-cha, der Rebbe du, in a guter Schuh. Cha-cha, fish on face. Oi, der Rebbe geht. Cha-cha, der Rebbe du, in a guter Schuh. Oi, der Rebbe du, oi, du, der Rebbe du. Wie sie gehen, aber bringt in der Schieler heim. Need them like they come and sing them tegen me. Oh, you do carabin, I'll buy you off me. Need them like they come and sing them tegen me. Oh, you do carabin, I'll buy you off me.
The first story is about a mother, her child, and the great empathy of our people. What about the little crickets and worms? Take a good look, my child, at how the one above has set up everything in the world in an orderly fashion, said the mother to her child. The birds lay their eggs in their nests, and when the baby birds come out of their shells, the father bird and the mother bird begin to feed their little babies with little crickets and little worms, and the baby birds thank and praise the Lord for his exceptional goodness. The wise child turned to his mother and father and innocently asked, Mother and Father dear, do the little crickets and the little worms also thank and praise the Lord when the baby birds eat them up? The second story is a lesson on the ways of the world. What do you see? One day, a poor man came to his rabbi, complaining, Rebbe, why are there so many poor people while others are so rich? And the Rebbe said, come with me to the window and tell me, what do you see? And the poor man looked out the window and he said, well, I see people, I see trees, I see flowers, I see birds, I see children. And the Rebbe replied, come with me now to the mirror. And now tell me, what do you see? And the man said, well, I see my face, I see my nose, my eyes, I see my chin. And the Rebbe says, you see, my good man, both the window and the mirror are made out of glass, but the mirror's back is silver, and so you see only yourself. The same goes for many a rich man, a man like you and me, but when their pockets are full of silver and gold, sometimes they only see themselves. So the question is, what do you see? And we will finish our amazing rabbinic tales, the shortest tall stories, with a short story about modern Israel. The Rebbe and the Israeli bus driver. Rebbe Yisrael was a pious man, a devout man, who lived in the Holy Land, and he followed all of the commandments. He led a very humble life, teaching young boys the Torah. His small school, his cheder, was always filled with young men who could not sit still, looking out the window, envious of the children who were free to play ball. And the boys never wanted to pray, but Rebbe Yisrael kept a very tight grip on them, and he wouldn't let them out until late at night, after the sun had set. He waited until the boys were exhausted, and only then would he send them home. And one day, Rebbe Yisrael died and arrived in heaven. And he was told by the angel Gabriel, the keeper of the heavenly gates in paradise, to sit down and wait his turn. And next to him in the waiting room was an Israeli bus driver, whom the rabbi actually knew quite well. He knew that the man was not devout. He traveled and smoked on the Shabbos, on the Sabbath. He ate non-kosher food. He never visited the synagogue. He didn't keep any of the commandments, and he blasphemed against God regularly. Now, what was this lowly bus driver doing at the pearly gates? Rebbe Yisrael wanted to know. But one doesn't ask any questions when it comes to heavenly justice. You just sit and wait. And suddenly, the gates of paradise opened, and the angel Gabriel invited to enter into paradise with great fanfare the Israeli bus driver. The Rebbe was stunned. He could not understand this injustice. He couldn't understand what was happening. Why was this godless, irreverent, sinful man welcomed into paradise first, while he, the Rebbe, who was pious and devout all his life, he kept kosher, he kept almost all of the commandments, he did good deeds, he even lived his entire life living with an unattractive wife. Why was he forced to wait? And this mamzer, this bastard, was welcomed into paradise first? Where was justice? And so the Rebbe turned to the angel Gabriel, the keeper of the gate, with a very heavy and angry heart. And he asked, "My dear angel Gabriel, why was the Israeli bus driver welcomed into paradise while I, who have kept almost all of the commandments, I ate kosher all my life, I did good deeds, and I even lived most of my life with an unattractive wife, and I am disregarded and asked to wait?" To which the angel Gabriel replied, "You see, Rebbe Yisrael, you were forcing little boys to learn the Torah and the commandments from morning until night, until the boys fell asleep and they never wanted to pray. But this Israeli bus driver, he used to drive his bus so wildly that all of his passengers instantly became extremely devout and prayed with all of their might. The Rebbe and the Israeli bus driver. So I thank you all for being with me tonight here in our inaugural, international, virtual Why I Love YiddishFest. I hope you enjoyed our tall, short stories. And I am so grateful to all of you for watching and being part of our festival. And indeed, this festival has surpassed all of my expectations and all of the expectations that anybody really had when we planned this entire thing about 10 weeks ago, is when we came up with the idea and decided that we were actually going to do this, which is pretty scary, let me tell you. And we didn't know exactly where the funding was going to come from. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do, but we did. And so here we are. I don't know if any of you have any questions, but I'm actually right now heading over to look at the comments. And so I just want to see if there is anything. I see some very lovely compliments from some very lovely people. Hello, Laurel. It's nice to see you. A good story from the Rebbe. It's Spain. It's Lippe. All right. Let me see if YouTube might have any interesting questions. But now is the time. Now is the time if you have any questions for me, any questions about the festival. And if not, that's fine, because I can go on talking for hours and hours and hours. I have so many shows I could just pull out. So until a question may arrive, let me just once again say that I could not be more grateful to so many people who have made this festival possible. I mentioned Amy London earlier. She's behind the scenes. You can't see her right now, but she's here in the Zoom with us. She monitors everything that's been going on. She has been in touch with every single one of the participants. And we have 44 events and 189 participants altogether. And so she's been the one that has been following up with everyone, making sure everybody gets into the Zoom at the right time, setting up all the scheduling. Amy, without you, I would have been lost. Thank you. And then, of course, our general manager, Gabe Scheinert, who is a young man, recently graduated from the University of Miami, and he and I together have created all of these amazing events. We came up with this idea and put it all into action. Our marketing director, Andy Rose from Khelm Communications. Now, how could I not work with an organization called Khelm Communications? And Andy Rose has an entire team of people working with him who created the websites and the Facebook posts and all of the events and on Twitter and the YouTube connections. Angel and Amanda and Gina and Brooke and Mimi and so many people create the graphics and everything else. So once again, without Gabe, without Andy, without Amy, and without all of the amazing participants, there's no way that we could have pulled that off. And that's why we come to you for free, because we wanted you to be able to watch all of this without having to worry about whether it cost you $10 or $18, or if you bought a ticket nowadays to some of these virtual play readings and performances, they're starting to cost real money. And we didn't want to do that. I work on the Joseph Papp model, which is free Shakespeare in the park. Do it for free. Let the people enjoy. Let them come and ask for their support. And so once again, I have to thank all of our sponsors who made this possible, especially the beautiful Betsy Hotel in South Beach. And I hope you go to the betsyhotel.com to see what an amazing facility this is. And God willing, when COVID goes away and the hotel opens again, we have already started talking about doing many, many live events from the Betsy Hotel. And now that we are learning that we can do live events, but also be available internationally on the internet through Zoom and through YouTube and Facebook, we have reached, as of this morning, over 28,500 people. If we were doing our live events, which we've done many here at the Betsy, we got 100, 200. I think our biggest event maybe had 300 people. We've done several little festivals here. We had Yiddish seminars and Yiddish courses and all these wonderful kind of events because the Betsy Hotel owners and managers love Yiddishkeit. And the reason is their father was Chaim Plutzik, the famous Jewish American poet. And so in their father's honor, they turned the Betsy into an arts hotel where they have writers and getaways and dancers and concerts and film screenings and so many lectures and seminars. And it's all related to the arts. And then they invited our organization, the Yiddishkeit Initiative, to come do Yiddish events. And so we've been working with them for 2 years, and now they have become the sponsor of the festival, making it possible for us to bring these things to you. Of course, the University of Miami. We are doing so much that is related to academics because we believe that we have to teach, we have to learn, we have to bring back all of the wonderful educational aspects of Yiddishkeit and Jewish culture. And so they became our sponsor in order to help present not only the entertainment elements, but also all of the academic elements. And we are working very closely with the university on archives and research and developing curricula based on my mother's 35 years of Yiddish language curricula for Columbia University. So we're hoping to establish a Yiddish chair at the University of Miami to be able to develop teachers and to teach teachers how to teach Yiddish around the world, and to teach young people this incredible, incredible culture that was almost lost. But now it's coming back in a way that you could never imagine. I love the fact that one of our sponsors is the Chenstochovel Society and Relief Agency. This is a group of people whose ancestors, and many of them who are still around, came from Chenstochov. And Chenstochov is a very famous city. And they have raised funding in order to support different projects and programs that they came to me and said, we love what you're doing, we want to help you. And they sent us funding. So thank you to the Chenstochover. Thank you to Gallery 22 and YaakovHeller.com, the brilliant Jewish artist who has been participating every single day. We opened the festival with a new documentary film about him creating the bust of the great prosecutor of the Nuremberg trials, Benjamin Ferencz. We've done several events from the gallery, and every night at 7:30 during the festival, we've seen Yaakov talk about his magnificent Jewish art. And I know I sometimes get into a little bit of hyperbole, but I really mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say that Yaakov Heller may be the greatest Jewish artist living today because his works embody the essence, the soul, the neshama of Yiddishkeit. And so that's just my opinion. You can develop your own opinion. There are several other sponsors. Go to our website, YiddishFest.org, click on our partners, and you'll see the logos of all of our wonderful sponsors, one of whom is Miami-Dade County, that gave us a grant for all of the liberation commemoration events that we've done. Tonight at 8 o'clock is the culmination of those events with a live, taped live concert of Frank London, the Grammy Award winner, and Eleanor Risa, the Tony-nominated director and actress. And they are doing a concert on our behalf called Mir Gehen Nicht Zurück, No Turning Back. And I think it will be one of the great concerts to remember. And hopefully you'll stay till 8 o'clock, or you'll come back at 8 o'clock to see that concert. And then we will do a live schmooze after the concert with Frank and Eleanor and myself. They are both my dearest friends, and I couldn't be more grateful for them to be able to do this. So Miami-Dade County gave us the funding because they all got paid. All of the participants in this festival have gotten paid. So Miami-Dade County would like to know your opinion about the festival. So there is a survey that you can fill out. You can find it on our websites and in our e-blast. So sign up for our e-blast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If enough people sign up to the YouTube channel, we might get money from YouTube. So please go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to our channel, go to Facebook and like us, fill out the survey. But most importantly, if you enjoy the programs, if you have enjoyed the programs up till now, if you've enjoyed tonight's program and the programs that are coming tonight and tomorrow, and tonight and tomorrow, we are doing the most incredible. We've kept, I have to say, the best is coming tonight and tomorrow. If you've enjoyed any of it and you feel comfortable enough and secure enough in your financial situation to be able to spare a couple of dollars, whatever it might be. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Even if it's $1 from a pauper means more than 1,000 from a multi-billionaire. And that is the truth. And we have gotten money from very wealthy people, and we've gotten money from paupers who love what we're doing. I actually got a donation, believe it or not, about a year ago of $3. Someone sent a check for $3 with a note saying, this is what I can afford, but I really wanted you to have it to continue your important work. And so whatever it is, if it's that $3 check meant more to me than some of the very wealthy people who have not been as generous as I think they know they could have, and maybe they will be in the future. And so whatever you feel comfortable with, whether it's $1, 10, 100, 180, or 18, or 18,000. If it's 18,000, I want you to contact me directly. All right? Anything substantial, please, whatever that means, give me a call or send me an email, info@whyilovejewish.org or avi@whyilovejewish.org, and I will respond to you personally. So please, go to the website, support our work, and I hope to see you back here at 8 o'clock when we bring Mir Gehen Nicht Zurück, No Turning Back, by Frank London, Eleanor Risa, and the Klezmer Bass All-Stars. See you at 8 o'clock.
I'm a professor at the University of Miami, and I am the director of the George Feldenkrais program in Judaic Studies, and I'm the founding director of the Sue and Leonard Miller Center for Contemporary Judaic Studies, which is a university-wide center at the University of Miami. If we look today at the Jewish world, the Jewish communities in most countries still have segments which adhere to the old definition of who is a Jew, but much larger segments today consider themselves Jewish because they are part of a tradition, part of a culture. One such important element has become known more recently as Jewish peoplehood, a subject which is of great interest to me personally and to the programs which I am developing. Jewish peoplehood includes, for instance, a very important component of the Yiddishkeit initiative, and that's why when I heard of this idea, right away